For 12 years, I poured my heart and soul into our family's jewelry business, a legacy passed down from my grandfather to my father. I believed with all my being that I would be its next steward. After all, I was the eldest daughter, and my passion for the craft had burned brightly since my teenage years. My father, always encouraging, reassured me time and time again that I was his successor. My younger sister? She had no interest in the business. Her dreams revolved around marriage and family, not gemstones and ledgers. To me, it felt certain, inevitable, until it wasn't. 8 months ago, my world was turned upside down. My father handed the business over, not to me, but to my estranged sister and her wealthy fiancé. Now, they've abandoned him after his heart attack, leaving me grappling with not just the betrayal, but the cruel irony of it all. Let me take you back. My sister hadn't been part of our lives for over 15 years, estranged after a dramatic fallout. At just 18, she boldly declared she wouldn't go to college, choosing instead to find herself. My parents, hurt and disapproving, gave her an ultimatum: college or independence. She chose the latter and walked away, hurling insults as she went. She told us we weren't good enough for her, that her boyfriend's family was far wealthier. Her words cut deep, especially for my parents, who had always done their best to provide for us. Her independence didn't last long. Within 6 months, her relationship crumbled, and she came back, knocking on our door. But my father stood firm. His conditions hadn't changed. If she wanted to return, she had to commit to getting a degree. She refused and left again, vowing never to come back. True to her word, she stayed away, her pride holding her hostage. For 15 long years, the only glimpses we got of her life came through distant relatives. She avoided us completely, cutting off all contact. During those years, I dedicated myself to the business. I started as my father's assistant, even leaving my first job to gain experience and earn my place. I didn't want to seem entitled. I wanted to work for it. And I did. I was there through every milestone, every challenge, growing alongside the company. My father's trust and support felt like a constant, and I believed my hard work was preparing me for the day I'd officially take over. But then, about a year ago, everything shifted. My father's health took a sudden and serious turn. Heart problems sent shockwaves through our family, and in the midst of it all, he decided to reach out to my sister. Perhaps it was the specter of mortality that pushed him to reconcile. To my surprise, she accepted. She came back, alone at first, and we spent that visit reminiscing. It was emotional, raw even, as the old wounds began to heal. Her second visit brought a surprise: her fiancé. She revealed they'd been together for 3 years and had recently gotten engaged. None of us knew. She'd kept it a secret. He seemed polished and charming, his wealth apparent in his tailored clothes and luxury watch. For the first time in years, my sister seemed happy and settled. I was genuinely happy for her, offering my congratulations. But I never imagined what would come next. 3 weeks later, my father summoned me home. I was running the business by then, managing operations while he dealt with his declining health. I thought the meeting would be about the company's future. In a way, it was, but not in the way I expected. My parents looked serious, their expressions heavy with something they didn't want to say. Then, my father broke the news. He had decided to give the business to my sister and her fiancé. At first, I thought it was a cruel joke. How could he trust someone he'd only known for 3 weeks with the family legacy? When I pressed him for answers, he wouldn't give any. Instead, he claimed they were more capable, that this would be a meaningful wedding gift as they started their new lives together. His words cut like shards of glass. I reminded him of my years of dedication, my sacrifices, and how he always assured me the business would be mine. But nothing I said swayed him. It was as if all those years meant nothing. He handed over the business, our family's lifeblood, to someone who had been a stranger to us for over a decade. My world crumbled. For as long as I could remember, my entire existence revolved around the family business. It was more than a livelihood, it was my future. So when the time came, I sought to make it official, proposing to my father that we become partners in the company. But his response was ice cold, his decision resolute. He insisted that my sister's fiancé, whose father had built a successful business empire, was better suited to manage the firm. According to him, they could grow the company at a pace I never could. I pleaded for a chance. I begged him to see the years of dedication I had poured into this legacy. But he refused to listen. I was devastated. It wasn't just the rejection, it was the insult buried in his words. I had spent 12 years of my life shaping the company, investing my soul into every aspect of its growth, only to be cast aside as if my efforts held no value. He didn't just deny me an opportunity, he denied my worth. That day, I made the decision to walk away, not just from the business but from my family. I packed my bags and left behind everything I had worked for, everything I thought mattered. My sister's acceptance of the business as her wedding gift felt like the ultimate betrayal. She knew, better than anyone, how much the company meant to me. Since I was 13, I had talked endlessly about taking the reins after my father's retirement. She didn't just accept the gift, she accepted my dreams as if they were her own. And then, to twist the knife deeper, she announced her engagement on social media, gushing about her gratitude for our parents' generosity. I couldn't bear it. What hurt the most wasn't the loss of the company. It was the silence. The complete absence of care from the people I had called family. From the moment I left, no one reached out. No one asked if I was okay. It was as if I had vanished, like those 12 years had been erased. I felt discarded, forgotten, like my entire life had been a waste. For months, I relied on my savings, doing nothing but trying to piece myself back together. Therapy became my lifeline, a desperate attempt to stop the spiral of despair pulling me under. I blocked my sister on every platform because even seeing her posts made me sick. I told my remaining contacts to keep any news about my family far away from me. I didn't want to know. But last week, everything changed. My father called me, using a borrowed phone because I had blocked his number. He was in the hospital, recovering from a cardiac arrest. The sound of his voice shook me. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and the anger, I felt a pang of guilt for shutting him out. He asked me to visit him, and I agreed, torn between resentment and concern. When I arrived at the hospital, the absence of my sister and her fiancé was glaring. My parents had always insisted they were close, especially now that the company was in their hands. Yet here they were, nowhere to be seen. Unable to hold back, I asked my father where they were. His answer stunned me. They were too busy to visit. The word stung like salt on an open wound. Too busy? The man had suffered a heart attack, and they couldn't spare a moment to check on him? It didn't make sense, especially since the company essentially ran itself. But the truth was undeniable, they hadn't even visited him once. They'd sent a cold, dismissive text saying they'd come by after he was discharged. It was in that sterile hospital room, with machines beeping softly in the background, that my father broke down. He admitted that he had made a grave mistake. He regretted giving the company to my sister and her fiancé, and he regretted pushing me away. For the first time, he apologized. He explained how their indifference over the past months had opened his eyes. They'd stopped visiting him, stopped caring about his well-being. They'd used the company as an excuse to abandon him completely. His remorse felt genuine, and though the wounds were still fresh, I forgave him. In that moment, all I could think about was reclaiming what I had rightfully earned. My father made it clear, he wanted to reverse his decision. He wanted me back in the family and back in the business. Of course, my sister didn't take the news well. She called me that morning, furious. She accused me of ruining her life, of stealing everything from her. Her anger boiled over, but I couldn't understand it. Wasn't it her actions, or lack thereof, that had led us here? She chose not to visit our father when he needed her most. She chose to accept a gift she knew wasn't hers to take. Her words cut deep, but I stood my ground. This wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. For years, I had been overlooked, unappreciated. Now, I was finally being given what I deserved. Why should I feel guilty for that? Yet, as her voice cracked with emotion before she hung up on me, I couldn't help but question myself. Was I the villain in her story? Or was I simply someone reclaiming what was always mine? When my fiancé and I left the family business, I never imagined how complicated things would become. Your overwhelming support on my last update meant the world to me. Deep down, I already knew I didn't deserve the criticism my sister had thrown my way, but hearing it from so many of you, strangers who have no personal stake, helped solidify my resolve. I don't think I need to explain myself any further. If even impartial voices agree that I deserve this opportunity, then I know I'm on the right path. My last conversation with my sister happened a few days ago, and there's been radio silence from her ever since. She hasn't blocked me, which is a small relief, but something feels off. It's like there's more she's not saying. No one with a wealthy fiancé should react this way over missing out on our business. Suspicion crept in. What if her fiancé isn't as well off as she's claimed? I couldn't confirm anything, but whispers of his family's financial struggles had reached me. Word was, his dad's company had been hemorrhaging money for the past year. What if their plan all along was to worm their way into our family business to secure their future? At the time, I didn't think these rumors were relevant, so I brushed them aside. Now, they paint an unsettling picture. My sister's reaction, the heartbreak, the drama, makes a twisted kind of sense if her fiancé's family isn't doing as well as they let on. Was this whole thing just a backup plan in case his dad's business failed? Looking back, I'm grateful my father never signed anything over to them. They were working under him in my former role, yes, but he remained CEO. It was his way of preparing them to take over down the line. But now, that future isn't happening. My father has already started working with lawyers to finalize the paperwork so I can officially take the reins. He wants to hand everything over to me as soon as possible, making it official. I won't lie, I'm thrilled. My sister's theatrics can't dampen my excitement. This opportunity is everything I've worked for, and I won't let anything overshadow it. Update 2. It's been a few weeks since my last post, and I have big news. I'm officially the CEO of my dad's jewelry company. The transition is complete, and I can finally say with absolute certainty, I'm in charge. I always believed this day would come, but my sister tried her best to delay it. Approaching her after everything, it was clear she was miserable. Her unhappiness only confirmed my suspicions. My theory? Spot on. She and her fiancé had been scheming all along, working methodically to infiltrate our family business. Their goal was clear. They needed a safety net if her fiancé's father decided to sell his struggling business. The truth came out when I reconnected with my dad. He admitted he'd been swayed by the allure of her fiancé's seemingly prestigious background. In his mind, someone from a well-known business family seemed like the ideal successor. And me? I'd be kept in my previous role, far from leadership. When I made it clear I wouldn't accept anything less than running the company, tensions escalated, leading to 8 months of absolute chaos. Thankfully, my father saw reason before it was too late. He realized the extent of their manipulation just in time. My sister and her fiancé's true intentions were revealed, and with their reputation in the business world crumbling, their plan unraveled. My sister reached out before the announcement of my promotion, pleading for help. She admitted that they were in dire straits. Her fiancé's father could no longer sustain his business, and they were desperate for work. Her desperation was evident, but so was the betrayal that lingered in the air. How could I trust them after everything? I told her I needed time to think. She agreed, but the weight of her actions made the decision unbearable. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Update 3. After much thought, I've decided not to hire my sister or her fiancé. Some might call me selfish, but the truth is, I can't afford to bring untrustworthy people into my business. They accepted my father's offer without hesitation, knowing it meant sidelining me. For 8 long months, they didn't even try to contact me. Their actions spoke volumes. They care only for themselves. When I broke the news to my sister, she didn't take it well. She stormed into my office, furious, accusing me of being heartless and selfish. She even claimed she regretted allowing me to have the company back. Her words were absurd. It wasn't her decision then, and it isn't now. My father made the call, not her.